The battlefield was a desolate wasteland, littered with the remains of fallen warriors, shattered technology, and the distant echoes of explosions that seemed to stretch forever. Smoke curled from the craters left by the battle, and the air hung thick with the stench of war. The once proud human military forces, now reduced to a fraction of their original strength, stood their ground in a desperate final stand against the overwhelming alien forces that had come to crush them. Captain James Aldridge stood at the forefront, his armor glinting in the dim light of the dying day. He was tall, his broad shoulders heavy with the weight of responsibility. His face, though young, was weathered by years of fighting. The war had aged him in ways no one could understand. Behind him, his soldiers were ready for one last push, one final defense to buy their people more time. They were all that remained, the last hope for humanity. Aldridge's armor, though battered and scarred, still held up against the alien onslaught. It was nothing like the advanced technology of the alien forces. To them, his armor must have seemed like a joke. It was thick, cumbersome, and covered in dents from the many battles it had survived. It was human-made, built from the scraps of fallen enemies and the remnants of lost technologies. But Aldridge knew that it held something more, an energy shield, a smart AI, and a built-in adaptability system that allowed it to learn from each encounter. It wasn't the most sophisticated, but it was human ingenuity at its finest. As the alien forces advanced, a massive figure stepped forward, the leader of the alien army. Narak, a towering warrior from the Zontar race, stood at least 3 feet taller than any human. His armor was sleek, designed for speed and strength, a stark contrast to the heavy, clunky human gear. His eyes, dark and cold, scanned the battlefield as he slowly walked toward Captain Aldridge. The human soldiers parted, giving their leader space as Narak's footsteps echoed across the battlefield. His weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, sleek energy blades that shimmered with a deadly light, and a personal shield generator that made him nearly invincible in direct combat. He was the pinnacle of his race's technology and skill. When Narak finally reached Aldridge, he stopped. The two warriors stood face to face, sizing each other up. There was a moment of silence, broken only by the distant sounds of the ongoing battle. Narak looked down at Aldridge's armor and let out a deep, mocking laugh. "Is this all you have?" Narak's voice boomed, carrying across the quiet battlefield. His laughter was cruel, filled with contempt. How pathetic. "You think this primitive armor will be enough to stop me?" Aldridge said nothing at first. His gaze remained steady, his face hard, as he looked up at Narak. The alien warrior's laughter filled the air, echoing off the surrounding rocks. Aldridge had heard such words many times before from both enemies and allies alike. Humanity was always underestimated, but it didn't matter. He had a mission, and he would carry it out, no matter what. "You may laugh," Aldridge said finally, his voice calm and measured. "But this armor has seen more than you can imagine, and it's still standing." He took a step forward, his boots crunching against the gravel as he readied himself for what was to come. Narak smirked, clearly amused. "You truly are a fool, human. Your technology is ancient." "It's no match for mine." He raised his hand, and his energy blade flickered to life with a hum, casting a deadly glow. Aldridge's hand moved to his own weapon, but he did not draw it just yet. His team of soldiers stood at the ready behind him, waiting for his signal. They trusted him, just as he trusted them. But this fight was his. He had led them this far, and he would see it through. Narak's mocking laughter continued even as he advanced. He struck out with his blade, moving with the speed and grace of a predator. Aldridge was quick to react, raising his shield just in time to deflect the alien's first strike. The force of the blow sent a shockwave through his body, but he held his ground. The alien warrior took a step back, surprised that the human had survived the initial strike. His smirk faded for a moment, replaced by a look of mild curiosity. Aldridge's armor had absorbed the impact, the shield flickering briefly before restoring its power. It wasn't the strongest shield, but it had proven itself time and time again. "You may be strong," Narak said, his voice colder now, "but you are nothing compared to the might of the Zatar." He launched into a series of rapid strikes, each one aimed at weakening Aldridge's defense. His movements were fast, and his strikes were designed to overwhelm. But the human soldier was prepared. He adapted quickly, using his armor's adaptive technology to anticipate Narak's attacks and counter them. The fight continued in a blur of motion. Narak's strikes were precise and deadly, but Aldridge's shield held firm, the armor's AI learning from each blow and adjusting its defenses. The two warriors moved across the battlefield, locked in a deadly dance, each trying to gain the upper hand. For a moment, it seemed as though the alien warrior might break through. Narak's energy blade sliced through the air, cutting deep into Aldridge's armor. Sparks flew, and the human soldier stumbled. But Aldridge didn't fall. His AI system activated, healing the damaged areas as quickly as they were struck. It was far from perfect, but it was enough. Narak stopped for a moment, watching in stunned silence. The human was still standing, despite everything. He had expected the armor to shatter, the human to fall under the weight of his superior strength and technology. But Aldridge was still there, unwavering, his eyes locked on Narak's with quiet determination. Narak's expression changed. The laughter that had once filled the air faded, replaced by a deep silence. He looked at Aldridge, his gaze calculating, as though seeing the human soldier for the first time. There was no mockery in his eyes now, only curiosity and a touch of respect. The battle raged around them, but in that moment the two warriors stood in a strange stillness. The alien warrior had been wrong. This human, with his crude armor and stubborn resolve, was not a weakling. He was a force to be reckoned with. And as Narak stared at him, the alien warrior knew that this fight was far from over. The human's armor had proven more than he had expected. But the real battle, the one that would determine the fate of humanity, was just beginning. Narak stood motionless for a brief moment, his energy blade humming softly as he studied the human soldier before him. The battlefield was filled with the noise of clashing weapons, the distant sounds of explosions, and the calls of soldiers fighting for their lives. But here, in the center of the chaos, there was a strange silence between Rack and Captain Aldridge. The alien warrior's initial arrogance had faded, replaced by a growing sense of respect and curiosity. Aldridge, his face grim and determined, stood firm, his armor battered but still intact. The alien's blade had left deep cuts in the surface of the armor, sparks flying as the shield absorbed the impact. The AI system inside Aldridge's suit adjusted in real time, repairing the damage as quickly as possible. His breathing was steady, though the weight of his armor seemed to increase with each passing second. He had to keep fighting, for humanity, for his people. "You should have fallen," Narak said at last, his voice low and tinged with disbelief. "No human should be able to withstand my blows. Yet here you stand. Your armor, it's different." Aldridge didn't respond immediately. He had heard alien warriors speak with disdain before, calling humans weak, primitive, unworthy of their place in the galaxy. But this was different. Narak's words held a hint of something else, a recognition of strength, a questioning of what he thought he knew about humans. The human captain tightened his grip on his weapon, a plasma rifle that was as old as the war itself. It wasn't as advanced as the alien technology around him, but it had served him well. His soldiers, scattered around the battlefield, continued to hold their positions, but Aldridge knew they were losing ground. He had to finish this fight. "Now, we're not the same," Aldridge finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "We may not have your technology, but we've survived. We fight for something more than just victory. We fight for the people we love, for our homes, for Earth." Narak tilted his head, considering the words. He had heard many humans speak before, but never with such certainty. Never with such conviction. It made him uneasy. The Zintar were conquerors, born to dominate weaker species. They didn't understand what drove humans. They never had. But now, in the face of this one soldier's resolve, he was beginning to wonder. "You fight for your homes?" Narak asked, his tone softer, almost thoughtful. "You fight for your people. And yet, you are the ones who are outmatched. Your technology cannot compare to ours. Your strength is nothing in the face of the Zuntar." Aldridge's eyes never left Narak's, his expression unwavering. He could feel the strain of the fight beginning to weigh on him. His armor was holding up but barely. He was running out of time, out of options. But he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. "We're not outmatched," Aldridge replied. "We've survived because we adapt. We learn. Your strength, it may have been enough to conquer others. But we're not like the others. We fight differently. We survive differently." Narak's eyes narrowed. There was something in Aldridge's words that troubled him. Humans had been resilient, yes, but he had always dismissed that as desperation. Now, standing face to face with Aldridge, he was starting to realize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just in their will to fight, it was in their ability to grow, to change, to overcome obstacles that would break most other species. The Zintar had always looked down on humanity, viewing them as little more than ants beneath their feet. But now, as Narak stood in the midst of a battlefield where human soldiers were still fighting, still pushing forward, something began to shift in him. He didn't know what it was, but he couldn't ignore the feeling. For the first time, Narak hesitated. His energy blade crackled in his hand, the blue light flickering as if mirroring the turmoil in his mind. He had been ready to wipe humanity off the face of the galaxy. But now there was doubt. And doubt, to a warrior like Narak, was dangerous. "You don't understand," Narak said, his voice suddenly less certain. "You're outnumbered. You're outclassed. Even if you survive this battle, your race is doomed. There is no future for humans in this galaxy. The Zintar will conquer all." Aldridge's lips curled into a small, defiant smile. He had heard this before. These same threats, these same boasts, but he wasn't afraid. Fear had no place on this battlefield.
"The future doesn't belong to you," Aldridge said quietly. "It belongs to everyone who fights for it."
And as long as we're alive, we'll keep fighting. Rack studied the human soldier before him, his gaze steady, calculating. The alien warrior had never considered the possibility that humanity could be more than just an obstacle to be eliminated. He had always viewed humans as weak, as a species that would bend before the might of the Zintar. But Aldridge's words, his presence, the way he stood tall despite the odds, began to chip away at that certainty. For the first time, Narak found himself questioning his orders. He had been sent to conquer this world, to wipe out the human resistance and claim Earth for the Zintar. But now, standing in front of this man, he wasn't so sure anymore. The battle continued around them, but it felt as though time had slowed in that moment. The sounds of explosions, the shouts of soldiers, the clash of weapons, it all seemed distant, muffled, as Narak and Aldridge locked eyes, each one searching for something in the other. Aldridge's chest heaved with the effort of battle. His armor was still holding, but it wouldn't last much longer. He needed to make his move soon. The alien leader was dangerous, and he knew that if he didn't act quickly, he would lose his chance. Without warning, Aldridge lunged forward, his plasma rifle raised. The weapon crackled with energy, its blast narrowly missing Narak's head as the alien warrior twisted aside with surprising speed. The momentary distraction broke the silence, and the battlefield roared back to life. Aldridge and Narak were once again locked in combat, but now there was something different in the air. Narak's blade moved faster, more calculated, as he tried to strike Aldridge down. But the human captain, using his armor's adaptive technology, was more than ready. His shield flickered, absorbing Narak's blows, and his AI system predicted each strike with precision. The alien warrior's arrogance had disappeared, replaced by a quiet respect for the human's resilience.
"You're not like the others," Dangrak muttered, his voice filled with reluctant admiration.
"You're different." Aldridge didn't reply. He didn't need to. The truth was in the fight itself. They weren't the same. They would never be the same. But in this moment, they were equals. And Aldridge was determined to prove it. The alien warrior swung again, his blade flashing through the air. But Aldridge was ready. He stepped aside, using his armor's enhanced mobility to avoid the blow, and countered with a powerful strike of his own. Narak staggered back, his eyes wide in shock. For the first time, he wasn't laughing. The battle raged around them, a blur of motion and chaos. Narak's powerful strikes collided with the human's armor, but Aldridge was no longer standing still. His every move was precise, calculated. His armor had adapted to Narak's speed, learning from each blow, allowing him to move with greater agility. For every strike Narak landed, Aldridge found a way to dodge or counter, pushing back with an energy and resolve that made the alien warrior pause. Narak could feel it. The human was growing stronger with each passing second, not just in physical ability, but in sheer determination. The alien had thought that defeating this human would be easy. After all, humanity had always been seen as weak, fighting with primitive weapons, struggling against a superior race. But the longer he fought Aldridge, the more the alien realized that humanity's true strength wasn't in their technology or brute force. It was in their spirit. The Zintar warrior grunted as he swung his energy blade again, but this time, Aldridge was ready. He sidestepped, his own weapon flashing as he fired a shot that sent Narak stumbling backward. The alien barely managed to catch his footing, his armor flickering with energy as his personal shield absorbed the impact. "You are tougher than I thought," Narak admitted through gritted teeth, his voice laced with frustration. His chest rose and fell with each breath, his eyes narrowing as he studied the human before him. Aldridge didn't respond. He didn't need to. His actions spoke for him. He raised his rifle again, the blue energy crackling as he fired another shot. This time, Narak barely managed to deflect it with his own energy shield, the blast sending a ripple through the air. Aldridge's mind raced. He was still alive, still standing. The armor was holding up, but it wasn't perfect. He could feel the weight of it dragging on him, the energy reserves draining with each movement. The longer this fight went on, the harder it would be to keep up, but he couldn't afford to let up now. The survival of humanity rested on this moment. He needed to make Narak hesitate, to give him the opening he needed. It was time to push back harder, to show the alien that the fight wasn't over. He took a deep breath and activated the second layer of his armor's defensive system. The energy shield flared brighter, its protective barrier surging outward. The AI inside the suit began analyzing the alien's movements more aggressively, tracking Narak's every motion in real time. With a quick shift of his weight, Aldridge closed the distance between them, charging toward Narak with surprising speed. The alien warrior's eyes widened as he prepared to swing his blade, but this time, Aldridge was ready. He ducked under the strike, moving faster than Narak had anticipated, and delivered a powerful punch to the alien's side. The impact reverberated through his armor, and for the first time Narak staggered backward, stunned by the force. The alien's hand went to his side where Aldridge's blow had landed, and he could feel the crack in his armor. It wasn't much, but it was enough to show that the human was capable of more than just survival. He was capable of winning. Narak's eyes flickered with something Aldridge hadn't seen before: uncertainty. The alien leader wasn't used to feeling doubt in battle. He had faced countless opponents, but none had ever made him question his own superiority. Yet here he was, fighting a human who should have been easy prey. Aldridge didn't wait for Narak to recover. He pressed the advantage, launching a series of attacks designed to keep the alien on the defensive. His plasma rifle fired rapidly, each shot targeting weak points in the alien's armor. The shots were well aimed, and though Nrak's shield absorbed most of the damage, it was clear that the human was adapting. Nrak gritted his teeth. His breathing had become more labored, and he realized that he had underestimated this human. He was used to his strength and his technology overwhelming others, but Aldridge wasn't like the others. This man didn't back down. He didn't fear the alien's might. He fought with everything he had, and that made him dangerous. As Nrak lunged again, Aldridge sidestepped, using his armor's enhanced agility to move just out of the way of the alien's strike. In the same motion, Aldridge twisted, his plasma rifle aiming at Nrak's exposed flank. The shot hit true, causing the alien to roar in pain as his shield flickered, struggling to absorb the impact. For a moment, there was silence. The alien warrior stood there, holding his side, blood dripping from the crack in his armor. His eyes were wide with shock. He had expected to defeat the human with ease, but now he was questioning everything. Aldridge didn't let the opportunity slip. He was on Nrak in an instant, grabbing the alien's weapon and twisting it out of his hand. The alien tried to fight back, but the human's movements were swift and precise. Aldridge slammed Nrak to the ground, his armor absorbing the shock as they both hit the dirt. Nrak struggled to free himself, but Aldridge was relentless. The human's strength, bolstered by his armor's enhancements, was too much for the alien to overcome. He was pinned, unable to escape. And for the first time since the battle had begun, Nrak felt a flicker of fear. "You wanted to destroy us," Aldridge said, his voice low and steady. "You wanted to wipe humanity off the map." "But we're still here, and we'll keep fighting." Nrak's eyes flickered as he processed the human's words. There was no mocking laughter now. No arrogance, just a quiet realization that humanity, the species he had deemed weak, had something far more powerful than technology or strength. They had the will to survive, the will to never give up, no matter the odds. Nrak's mind raced. He had never considered the possibility that humanity could be this strong, this determined. The Zentaur had always thought they were the superior race, but now, in the face of Aldridge's unwavering spirit, that belief was crumbling. The human was right. The Zentaur had underestimated them. With a grunt, Nrak finally pushed Aldridge off, using the last of his strength. He rolled to his feet, panting, his energy blade flickering in his hand. But his movements were slower now, more cautious. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep fighting. Aldridge stood as well, his breathing steady despite the weariness in his body. He didn't lower his weapon. He knew this fight wasn't over yet. But he had made his point. The alien warrior had seen what humans were capable of, and that, in itself, was a victory. "Your race may have conquered many worlds," Aldridge said, his voice carrying over the battlefield. "But you'll never conquer us, not while we still have the will to fight." Nrak said nothing. He only stared at the human, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and respect. There was no laughter now. No arrogance, only a quiet understanding that the battle for humanity's future was far from over. And this time, it was the human soldiers who would decide the outcome. The silence between them felt heavy, as though the battlefield around them had faded away. The sounds of fighting, the explosions, and the cries of soldiers seemed distant, muffled by the strange tension that hung in the air. Captain Aldridge stood tall, his armor battered but intact, the energy shield flickering faintly as it absorbed the last of the damage from their brutal fight. Nrak, the alien warrior, was still catching his breath, his energy blade hanging loosely in his hand, his gaze locked on the human in front of him. For the first time, Nrak wasn't sure what to think. The human soldier before him, despite being outmatched in every way, had held his ground, not just physically, but mentally. Aldridge's calm, unyielding presence had shaken something deep within Nrak. The alien warrior had never encountered an opponent like this, someone who fought not just to survive, but for something greater, for his people, for his world. Narak wiped the blood from his side, the crack in his armor still stinging, and his mind raced. The human's weapon, his armor, his unrelenting will to live, none of it should have been enough to hold up against the superior Zutar technology. And yet, here they were. Narak had given it everything, and still the human soldier stood. "Why do you fight so hard?" Narak finally asked, his voice quieter than before, a hint of curiosity replacing the mockery that had once filled it. His eyes searched Aldridge's face for any sign of weakness, but there was none. "What's worth all this?"
All this destruction? Aldridge's gaze softened for just a moment, but his voice remained steady. I fight for my people, for the future of humanity.
We don't give up, even when the odds are against us. No matter how many times we're knocked down, we get back up. Rack's expression darkened, his jaw tightening as the weight of Aldridge's words settled in his mind. The alien warrior had been taught to believe in the superiority of his race, to crush those who were weaker without question. It had always been that way, and it had never occurred to him that another race, especially humans, could possess something more than just technology, something intangible, but powerful nonetheless. The alien shook his head, as though trying to shake off the confusion creeping into his mind. "You are all the same," he muttered, more to himself than to Aldridge. "Pathetic and weak. You fight for survival, but in the end, what do you have? A world to defend? A future?"
"You'll never win! You'll never defeat us!"
Aldridge took a step forward, his boots crunching against the gravel. His rifle was still in his hands, but it wasn't raised. He didn't need to fire it. Not yet. He knew the alien's arrogance was still there, buried under the doubts that had begun to surface. It was his moment to push forward.
"You're wrong," Aldridge said, his voice calm but full of conviction. "It's not about defeating you."
"It's about something more. Something you can't understand. It's about our people, our world, our right to live and choose our future. We fight because we have something worth protecting, and that's what makes us stronger than you." "Nick!" looked at Aldridge, his expression unreadable. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped turning. The alien warrior had always believed that strength came from power, be it technology, weapons, or sheer force. But now, as he looked at Aldridge, there was a nagging doubt in his mind. The human didn't fight with weapons alone. He fought with something deeper, something that Narak had never fully understood. The alien tried to shake off the thought. He couldn't afford to question himself now, but the words lingered. They gnawed at him, just like the pain in his side. The longer he stayed here, the more he realized that Aldridge was right. The fight wasn't about defeating the enemy. It was about something more, something he had never considered. Narak stepped back, taking a moment to steady himself. His hand clenched around his energy blade, the weapon humming with power. "Enough of this," he said, his voice low but filled with the same cold confidence he had always carried. "This battle is far from over. I will not be swayed by your words, human." Aldrich didn't flinch. He stood firm, his gaze unwavering. "Then we'll continue fighting. Until the end." Narak hesitated for just a moment longer, as though weighing his options. The alien warrior knew that he was losing this fight, but he wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. He was still stronger, still faster, and he had one final advantage: his army. The alien's mind raced as he thought of his forces, still engaging in battle with the remaining human soldiers. If he could rally them, he could crush the humans once and for all. But for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in this fight. Something had changed. "You think you can win this?" Narak sneered, trying to regain his confidence. "You may have fought well, human, but you are alone."
"Your soldiers are dying. The war is already lost."
Aldridge didn't blink. "We're never alone. We fight together. And we will never surrender." The alien's eyes narrowed. his patience wearing thin. His hand gripped his blade tighter, and he advanced toward Aldrich once more. But this time, there was no laughter, no mockery in his movements. He was focused, serious. He knew this fight would be hard, but he also knew he couldn't let the human soldier get the better of him. Aldrich was ready. The human captain had been through enough battles to know when to strike, when to hold back, and when to make his final move. He was tired, his energy reserves low, but his resolve was as strong as ever. This wasn't just about winning. This was about humanity's survival, and he would not let it slip away. As Enrak swung his blade, Aldrich ducked low, using his armor's enhanced agility to dodge the alien's attack. The two warriors were locked in a deadly dance, each one trying to outmaneuver the other. Nak's energy blade flashed through the air, but Aldrich's armor absorbed the blows, the AI quickly compensating for each strike and adjusting the shield's energy output. Narak grunted in frustration. This human was proving to be more difficult than he had expected. With each strike, it became clearer. The human was not simply a soldier. He was a symbol of something greater. The more Enrak fought, the more he realized that it wasn't just Aldrich's strength or skill that made him formidable. It was his unyielding spirit, his refusal to back down. The alien warrior stepped back, his breath coming in sharp gasps. The realization hit him hard. He had underestimated humanity, and now, in the heat of battle, it was clear. He had no idea how far they would go to protect their world. No one had ever stood against the Zuntar like this. Aldrich's eyes locked onto Narak's. "You've underestimated us."
You've underestimated me, and you will lose.
For a moment, Narak didn't move. He stared at the human captain, his mind spinning. The alien had never considered the possibility that the humans might actually win, that they might have the strength to stand up against the Zuntar, even after everything. But now, with each passing second, that possibility seemed more real. With a final, determined strike, Aldrich launched himself forward, his armor's strength pushing him past the limits of what the human body should have been able to do. Enrak was forced to block, his energy shield flaring as he absorbed the impact, but the alien was growing weaker. And Aldrich, he was just getting started.